They're all brand new.
Everybody's the same.
That's when you have the books like that. You got to take them. You got
You
to
gotta crack it.
open them up and use them.
That's a bad sign, yeah. When you go like this. But
It's good. It's a good sign. It's a good sign.
It's a good
If
sign.
you're getting into it, you're learning.
Yeah.
Okay. So welcome everyone to Wednesday night Halacha and Chassidus. I chose the topic for Halacha this week based on the Parsha. Lo yisavashel gedi b'chalevi moy. Don't cook a kid in its mother's milk. It says in this week's Parsha, which is also my bar mitzvah Parsha. And so I thought it would be an opportunity, an excuse to study a little bit of Hilchos Basar B'chalav a little bit, the laws of Basar B'chalav a little bit. And then I got what I wasn't expecting. And that was that in the daily study of Rambam, it spoke about Basar B'chalav, about meat and milk, even though the Rambam schedule, there's a schedule of Bavitchers learn Rambam every day.
Yeah.
So in my daily study of the Rambam, I'm learning here, just innocent me, learning some Rambam, minding my own business. And in the middle of Hilchos Mamrim, the laws of rebellious ones, boom, right there, laws of meat and milk. Right there in the middle. Not in the laws of kashrus, it's also there, don't worry. But so that was my indication. That was yesterday's Rambam. That was my indication. Oh, for sure we're meant to study the laws of Basar B'chalav, and we'll include that piece of Rambam, God willing, which will hopefully guide us into understanding a little bit the laws of meat and milk, or specifically, as I announced in the chat and as says on the top of your source sheet, poultry and dairy. Why is it forbidden? Chicken. Famous discussion about chicken and milk. So we're going to go to the Gemara, Masechta Chullin, which is the source for these halachas, and then we'll learn the Shtickle Rambam. I hope we're going to have time to get to the Shulchan Aruch also. I guess it depends how we go. So, ready? Okay. So we're learning the Mishnah. There's a few Mishnahs actually on page 113a, Daf Kuf Yud Gimel Amud Aleph in the Mishnah. There's a few Mishnahs there. We're learning the one that starts Basar Behema Tahira. Let's see the Mishnah. Basar Behema Tahira, Bachaliv Behema Tahira. Also Lavashal, also Ba'na. You're not allowed to cook, nor are you allowed to derive benefit from the meat of a kosher animal in the milk of a kosher animal. That's the first statement. Bisar behema tahira b'chalev behema timeya. On the other hand, a little bit of a different scenario. If you have meat that is from a kosher animal and milk that is from a non-kosher animal, or alternatively, Bisar behema timeya, or on a meat from a non-kosher animal, b'chalev behema tahira, with the milk from a kosher animal. In either of those instances, mutar lavashel, you're actually allowed to cook them, or mutar bahana, and you're also allowed to derive benefit from those mixtures. Are you allowed to eat them? Obviously not. But the prohibition of eating those mixtures, for example, again, meat of a kosher animal, milk of a non-kosher animal, the prohibition is not a prohibition of basar b'chalav, of meat and milk, of the combination of meat and milk. That's not the issue. The issue is that either the milk is unkosher or the meat is unkosher. So you don't have to mix it with anything. You're just not allowed to eat it anyway. But the combination of those two does not create the new entity that we call basar b'chalav, meat and milk. Okay. That's the first part of the Mishnah. Now we have Rebbe Kiva. Now here we're going to have a famous machlokes. So Rebbe Kiva says, in addition to everything we just said about animals, behema, and the milk, in addition to that, chaya v'oif, a chaya, an undomesticated animal, v'oif, or a bird, like a chicken, right? Einam min haTorah. They are not prohibited by Torah law, meaning they are prohibited by rabbinic law. Now, why does Rebbe Kiva say they're not prohibited by Torah law? Shenamar lo yisavashel gedi b'chalev imoy, which is from the sixth parsha, and it occurs 3 times, as we're going to see later. 3 times in the Torah. As it says, you shall not cook a kid in its mother's milk. Shalish po'oim, Rebbe Akiva says that this verse is repeated 3 times in the Torah. Most things are not repeated at all in the Torah, yet this one is stated 3 times, the exact same verse. Again, one of those times, Lois vashal gediba chalivi moy, don't cook a kid in its mother's milk, is in this week's Parashat Mishpatim. So why, as Rebbe Akiva, does the Torah need to say it 3 times? I get the message already. I don't need to read the same pasuk 3 times. Zok Rebbe Akiva in the Mishnah, prat l'chay loifel behemoth tmeya. This comes to the repetition of the word gedi, which we translate as a kid, the goat or whatever, 3 times excludes a chaya, an undomesticated animal, a bird, and a non-kosher animal. So that's Rebbe Akiva. Rebbe Akiva says that the prohibition of a bird, poultry, a chicken or a turkey or whatever, cooking that or rather eating that with milk is not prohibited from the Torah, but it is prohibited rabbinically from the rabbis. And we're going to see in the Rambam a little bit soon why that is, God willing. Good so far? Yeah. Next part of the Mishnah, here's the machlokes. Rabbi Yossi HaGlili says, no, I disagree with you. Nemar, the pasuk says, Lo soichlu kol nevela. In one pasuk in the book of Devarim, it says, you shall not eat any nevela. What's a nevela? An animal carcass. You're not allowed to eat it. That's one pasuk. And then also it says, V'nemar, Lo yisvashel gedi b'chalivi moy. It also says in this parsha, don't cook a kid in its mother's milk. What does Rabbi Yossi HaGlili understand from this? This indicates the meat that is forbidden to you because of the prohibition of eating nevela, a carcass, that is what is ostensibly a kosher animal, a cow, but it wasn't slaughtered properly. Also, levashel b'cholov, that type of animal, meaning the same type of animal that you would not be allowed to eat if it was just an unslaughtered carcass. That animal, you're also not allowed to cook in its milk, in the milk. However, oif she'osur mishum, did I skip? No. Oif she'osur mishum nevela, consequently, a bird, a chicken or whatever, which is forbidden also, you're not allowed to eat an unslaughtered bird that died on its own. Yochel yehei also levashel b'cholov, so you might think that has the same laws as any other type of animal. That if the animal is forbidden for you to eat, if you find it dead on the side of the road, roadkill, if you're not allowed to eat it in such a state, but if you had slaughtered it, it would be kosher. In other words, like a cow. Right? If the cow drops dead, you can't eat it, even if it was a nice cow. You can't eat it. It has to be slaughtered. So Rabbi Yossi HaGlili says such an animal, the animal that's asur mishum nevela, that you can't eat it if it's unslaughtered or not slaughtered properly, that animal you cannot eat with milk. So can you eat a bird that was unslaughtered? No. So you might think, says Rabbi Yossi HaGlili, that therefore the prohibition of not eating it with milk also applies to a bird, because a bird you also cannot eat if it was not slaughtered or not slaughtered properly. That's what you might think. You might have thought that it's prohibited to eat a chicken with milk. Says Rabbi Yossi HaGlili, no. Talmud loymar. So the pasuk comes to tell you. The verse states, "Bachalev imoy." It doesn't say loy sevashel gedi bachalev. Don't cook a kid in milk. It says in its mother's milk. What is that telling you? Mother's milk.
So the chicken is okay.
1 second. Yotza, this comes to exclude oif she'ein loy chalev ein. It means that the only type of animal or creature that you're not allowed to eat together with the milk is an animal that has a mother that produces milk. So a cow, a calf, its mother produces milk. Therefore, you can't eat it together with it. But a chicken, chickens don't produce milk. No such thing as chicken milk. So according to Rabbi Yossi HaGlili, you are permitted to eat chicken with milk. That's the mission. The halacha is not like this, but this is the opinion of the Mishnah that's recorded. Rabbi Yossi HaGlili maintains you're allowed to eat chicken with milk together, with dairy. Okay so far? So if machlekes, Rabbi Akiva says, are you allowed to eat chicken with dairy, with milk? No. Rabbi Yosef Glili says, are you allowed to eat them together? Yes. So I would have made more copies. I'm sorry, I didn't have enough copies. We'll share soon.
Share. For sure.
Here, here's another one. Try this one. Okay, that's the Mishnah. That's the machlekes in the Mishnah. We're good?
What does it mean that Rabbi Yosef doesn't eat chicken with the
That's a very good question. That's a very good question. This is discussed in various areas. If one chacham who the majority was not like him, or if people didn't follow him, would he do the way he said, or would he have to follow the majority? It seems that he'd have to follow the consensus. That's what it seems, even if he held otherwise. But there could be exceptions to that. But that's a really good question. In any event, that's the machlekes in the Mishnah. We paskin across the board. Nobody paskins like Rabbi Yosef Glili. We paskin like Rabbi Akiva that you're not allowed to eat poultry, birds with milk. However, the prohibition is d'Rabbanan, is rabbinic, not d'oraisa. It's not a Torah prohibition. Which, if we have time, we'll get later. If I don't think we have time, we'll get to what difference that makes. Like, so what? Rabbinic, Torah, it doesn't matter. We'll get to that. Okay? Good so far? Let's take a look at the Rambam that I said is the Hashgacha Pratis, the divine providence that in yesterday's Rambam, I didn't expect it to be there, but there it was. We're learning in Hilchos Mamrim. This is the book of the Rambam. That means a siyum on Rambam is coming up soon, God willing, for those who do the daily study of the Rambam. And it's in Hilchos Mamrim, which means literally the laws of rebellious ones. And it includes in it the laws to follow what the Sanhedrin, what the Supreme Court says, not to deviate from their words. You're not allowed to add to the Torah. That's where the meat and milk is going to come in. You're not allowed to add to the Torah. And likewise, you're not allowed to detract from the Torah either. And that's where we're going to get, and then it talks about not cursing your parents, God forbid, not hitting your parents, to honoring them. All these halachas are discussed here in Hilchos Mamrim. So in the context of the mitzvah not to add to the Torah, nor to take away from the Torah, that's where we're going to encounter Basa B'Chalaf here. And you have it on your source sheets. It's chapter 2, Halacha Test, chapter 9, Halacha 9. It says as follows. The based in a court is allowed. They have the authority to issue a decree. They can make rules and forbid something which is permitted. They're allowed to do that in certain circumstances. And that can be l'doiris. That can be for all future generations, that their prohibition of something which was previously permitted would continue for generations forward. And likewise, likewise, they're actually also allowed to permit temporarily things that the Torah said is forbidden. It all depends on the scenario. This is not across the board. In certain situations, they're allowed to do that. So therefore, if that's the case, that a beis din, a proper Jewish court, is permitted, number one, to add by telling you that you know that thing that's asur. I'm sorry, other way. You know the thing that's permitted, you're not allowed to do it. And number two, to detract, that is by saying, you know that thing that's not allowed, oh, it is allowed.
Temporarily.
Well, only to permit something that was forbidden is temporary. So if that's the case, then what does it mean in the Torah when it says don't add to it and don't take away from it? What do you mean? They're adding and they're taking away. But the Torah tells us, don't add and don't detract. But what do you mean? They do that. That's the question of the Rambam. Mm-hmm. So he answers that what it means, their intent is they do not have the authority to add to the words of Torah. He's going to explain. Nor do they have the authority to take away, to detract from the words of the Torah. And they're not allowed to establish something forever as part of scriptural law, min ha-Torah. They're not allowed to, so to speak, add it to the Torah. That applies both to the written Torah and the oral Torah. What does that mean? So the Rambam continues, Ketzad. How does this work? Harikosov b'Torah, it says in the Torah, here we get to our point, Lois vashal gedi b'chaliv imoy, don't cook a kid in its mother's milk. That's this week Parashas Mishpatim. What does that mean? Don't cook a kid in its mother's milk. We have an oral tradition that teaches us. This verse is forbidding us from cooking and eating meat and milk combination. Bein basar behema, bein basar chaya. Whether it is the meat of a domesticated animal or from a non-domesticated animal. What about chickens? What about birds? Aval basar ha'oif. But what about the meat of a chicken, of poultry? Mutter b'cholov min ha'Torah. That's permissible. According to strict Torah law, it is 100% permissible to eat a mixture of dairy and chicken. So im yovay beistin v'yater basar chaya b'cholov. If a beistin will come along and say, you know what, the meat of a domesticated animal, of a wild animal, basar chaya, of a wild animal, you're allowed to eat that with milk. Hareza goyreya. They are detracting from the Torah. They've changed the actual Torah itself. They say, you know what it says in the Torah? It's not allowed. It is allowed. But on the other hand, v'im yasor besar ha'oif, if they would forbid poultry, if they would come and say, oh, you know what? Chickens, you're not allowed to eat chicken with milk. And not only that, but when the Torah says, lois vashel gidi, don't cook a kid, that includes chickens. And the prohibition of chicken with milk is d'oraisa from the Torah. Oh, that's not allowed. That's transgressing the prohibition of adding to the Torah. So that's not okay. But avo, im omer, if they say, listen, basar ha'oif, chicken, poultry, combined with milk is mutar min ha'Torah. The Torah law says that's allowed, if this is what they say. But we feel v'onu nesar, so we're going to prohibit it. And we're going to make it known that it's us prohibiting it, not the Torah. We're going to let everyone know, guys, this is a rabbinic law, not a Torah law. So, and why? They got to have a reason. They can't just go around tossing out forbidden, permitted. They can't do that. They got to have a reason. So what's the reason that the Chachamim saw fit to prohibit combining poultry with milk? So everybody said, what do people say? If you take a random survey of people, why are we not allowed to eat chicken with milk?
You come to eat meat with milk.
So people say, because it looks like meat. And if you're going to see people mixing chicken with milk, it looks like meat. So they're going to come mix chicken with meat. They're going to come mix meat with milk. And that's a Torah prohibition. You've heard that before? Chicken looks like meat? B'chlal not.
Some part of it.
Maybe.
Legs,
maybe.
Rice.
Okay, maybe. So they are forbidding the combination of chicken and milk, and they're not stating that it's d'oraisa from the Torah. They're stating it's their rule, and the reason they have this rule is that people shouldn't say mistakenly that ha'oif mutter is punish. You know why chicken is allowed? Because the Torah doesn't say chicken anywhere. It says gidi. What's a gidi? A goat, a kid. It doesn't say chicken. That's why chicken is permitted with milk. And you know what else? Chaya. You know what else is not mentioned explicitly in the Torah? Chaya, a wild animal. It says a gedi, a goat. A goat is a domesticated animal. A goat is a behema, a domesticated animal. So since it doesn't say chicken, and that's why chicken is permitted with milk, so too, anything else that's not stated explicitly, such as a chaya, that is a wild animal, is also permitted with milk. It's not the pshat that you're going to mix up and confuse the way a piece of chicken looks and the way a brisket looks, or what a deer. You're not going to. Chicken is white. Okay, even the darker part still. Nobody ever served, I'm not such a meat guy, but nobody ever served me a piece of chicken. I was like, oh, that looks like a brisket. I never thought that. Because that's not the reason. You see what the Rambam's saying? And then it's gonna go further. It's gonna get out of control. Another person's gonna come and say, you know what? Not only are chickens permitted with milk, and not only are wild animals permitted with milk, because it doesn't say either of them explicitly. You know what else is permitted with milk? Other types of animals, just not the goat. Because the goat, it says explicitly. So a goat, you cannot cook with milk. But anything else, chicken with milk, no problem. A deer with milk, no problem. Cow, beef with milk, no problem. That's what people might think. And et cetera, et cetera. And you're going to carry it all further and further and further. What type of milk? This milk, a cow milk, a goat milk, and so on and so forth. So that's the reason that Rambam says, therefore, the Chachamim said, therefore, in order to avoid that potential stumbling block for people, we're going to forbid all meat with milk, whether it's a behema, a domesticated animal, which it says explicitly, just a gedi, a goat, or whether it's a chaya, a wild animal, whether it's a oif, a bird, poultry, a fil basar oif. That says that I'm ein zem moisif. That's not considered adding to the Torah. That's considered making offense. Questions, comments about the Rambam?
It says doesn't cook. What about if you drink milk with it? You don't cook together.
Separately?
Right, the same thing, right?
Not the same thing.
No?
No, not the same thing. We're going to see maybe in Shulchan Aruch now. I don't know, we have a few minutes. Okay, questions about this?
Should they also fish? And then if they're according to the Rambam,
I guess
chicken, so we don't confuse anything. I'll just add fish to there also.
Right. So we're going to see in Shulchan Aruch about this a little bit. I don't know if we're going to get to that actually. Maybe it's earlier actually. I did not have time to review all of Hilchos Mamrim before tonight's class. Okay, let's go to Shulchan Aruch now and take a look. Okay. Shulchan Aruch Y.D Siman Pei Zayin Halacha Gimel. So this Siman Pei Zayin is the first siman, the first section of Hilchos Basar B'Chalav in Shulchan Aruch, and the heading is, which it doesn't say on your sheet here, the heading is Be'ezu Basar Noeg Din Basar B'Chalav. In which type of meat is the laws of Basar B'Chalav, meat and milk, applicable? V'heyach nikra bishul, and also what is considered cooking. If we're not allowed to cook them together, so how do we define cooking? If you pickle them and put them in a container together overnight, is that cooking? And so on and so forth. Different questions like that are going to come up. So Siv Gimel, Halacha Gimel says, Einoi noig ela b'basar behema tahira. The only prohibition of meat and milk, the unique prohibition of meat and milk, where the two things were previously permissible, like shatnez, right? Wool and linen. Wool is permitted to wear a wool garment, it's permitted to wear a linen garment. You can't just can't wear a garment that's wool and linen, right? The combination. So the actual prohibition is when the meat is from a kosher animal and the milk is from a kosher animal. That's the prohibition. Aval basar tahira, which we saw from the Gemara. Yeah, so from the Mishnah, I mean.
Mishnah.
Aval basar tahira, but kosher meat, b'chalev tmeya, with non-kosher milk, or flip it around, vice versa. Oy basar tameya, non-kosher meat, b'chalev tahira, with kosher milk. Mutarim bebishul, you are allowed to cook them together. I don't know why you'd cook them, but you're allowed to cook them together. Uvehana, and you're allowed to derive benefit from them. You can't eat them, obviously.
But what kind of benefit?
You could sell it to somebody, for example,
Your dog or cat.
for your dog or the cat, right? Or there's some story episode about I was heard recently some story about somewhere where they said it would help the plants grow or something like that. They would pour a mixture of basar b'cholav on the plant. I'm not sure.
To feed your animal. I mean, that's
Feed your animal. Now you're not allowed to eat it, but not because, as we mentioned before, not because of the prohibition of basar b'cholav.
Right.
You're not allowed to eat it because it's treif. Completely separate issue, right? Now here's to our point. Basar chayav v'oif. But if it's the meat of a wild animal or poultry, afilu b'chalev tahira, even with the kosher milk. So you're taking chicken, kosher animal, and you're cooking it with kosher Ahavas Yisrael cow's milk. Mutter b'bishul, you're allowed to cook them together. Uvahana, and you're allowed to derive benefit from them. Comma. But ve'af b'chila eino yoser el midrabanan, and eating them together is not permitted. But it's a derabanan prohibition from the rabbis, not from the Torah. So the practical difference is that with meat and milk, actual meat, kosher meat, and kosher milk, if you took a cheeseburger and you'd have to actually cook them together. Technically, it's only if they're cooked together. Then not only are you not allowed to eat it, and that's a prohibition, God forbid, if a person eats it of basar v'cholav, don't eat meat and milk together. Not only that, not allowed to cook it, so you can't get a job in a restaurant that would serve it. You're not allowed to cook it. And number three, you're not allowed to derive anybody. You couldn't sell it, you couldn't give it to your dog, and nothing. It has to be burned and disposed of in such a way that there's no benefit derived from it whatsoever. But chicken, you not allowed to eat it, chicken with milk, not allowed to eat it, but not because of basar v'cholav, just because it's treif. But you are allowed to cook them together. Again, why would you cook it together? I'm not sure.
In a restaurant, we're making
Working in a restaurant, maybe.
chicken cheeseburgers.
Okay, chicken cheeseburgers. And you are allowed to derive benefit from it, so you could sell it or give it to your animals, etc.
So it's not a forbidden mixture.
Correct.
It isn't treif of your pot.
Well, it shapes up your pot if
Chicken, you have chicken meat and milk pot.
well,
I mean,
it's also derabanan though.
see, the mixture is also the rabbanon. I mean, he said you can cook it.
Well,
with their
right,
benefit, but you
derabanan.
can't eat it.
Correct.
If you can't eat it, then it changes your pot.
You
But I
can't
can-
eat it
but
mitzad
I'm allowed to mix it together though.
No, but even if it's we can't eat it because it's treif. The fact that it's mixed together.
But if the fact that it's a mixture doesn't make it.
doesn't make the pot any more treif. The pot is treif enough when you're already putting in non-kosher chicken.
But my question is a forbidden mixture.
It's on the status of a derabanan forbidden mixture. So it's not a doraisa forbidden mixture.
So it's forbidden for eating, but I could theoretically cook it.
And if a person would eat it, God forbid, they've transgressed the derabanan prohibition of basar b'cholav.
Okay.
As far as fish, it opens up a massive can of worms. That's because that's how you go fishing. You put the worm on the end of the line and you go fishing. But the Mechaber says, Avel dagim v'chagovim, which is another can of worms or bugs, fish or grasshoppers, ein bohem isra afilu midrabanan. They're not even prohibited midrabanan. So if you want to eat fish with milk, and this is the can of worms, no problem at all, says the Mechaber. However, if you look in the Taz in the you don't have the Taz in the sheet. The Taz writes, "Bebeis Yosef Kosov, umikol mokum ein lechol dogim b'cholav." The Beis Yosef writes, meaning the Beis Yosef is the Mechaber, right? It's just the previous source. He writes, no, don't eat fish with milk. Why? Mipnei sakana. It's dangerous.
Ooh, bagel, lots of cream cheese.
Says the Taz, v'hutos soifrim. It's a mistake. It's a printer's error. Okay, this is a whole parsha. Whole parsha. Do you eat lox and cheese? Bagel and
You should have
cheese
said
and
in
lox.
busser. That's what he's saying.
Right. This is the whole parsha of bagel and lox with cream cheese. Some eat it, some don't eat it, and some eat it. Some will eat dairy with. Some will eat milk with fish only if you've added in some other type of cream or fat or something like that. Which cream cheese would qualify for that? Whole other parsha. Let's do the Ramah also. Do you have the Ramah on the page? Yes. Yeah, right here. The Ramah says, "V'nogu lasois." This would actually be another interesting topic, maybe for another Wednesday evening, maybe. The topic of Maras Ha'ayin. V'nogu lasois cholav mishkedim. There's such a thing that people make almond milk. Even in times of the Ramah, they were health conscious, maybe. They made almond milk in the times of the Ramah, 500 some years ago, or whatever it was. V'nogu lasois cholav mishkedim. They made milk out of almonds. Umanichim babasar oif. And you cook chicken in it. Not a problem, he says. Someone's going to come and look at it and they're going to say, hey, how come you're cooking chicken in milk? I thought we're not allowed to have chicken with milk. So he says the Ramah, since it's only a rabbinic prohibition, chicken and milk together, therefore we're not worried about maras ha'ayin. That's what he says. But if you're eating beef, and the beef is cooked with almond milk, which looks like regular milk, and now someone will see you eating your beef with your milk concoction, and they will think, oh my gosh, he's eating basar b'chalav mamish, doraisa. So what are you allowed to eat it? Is it forbidden to eat it? Of course not. It's almond milk and meat and beef. What's usher about that? It's kosher. Nevertheless, we have a concern of maris ha'ayin, of how it's going to appear. Which really means, and again, maybe this might be an interesting thing to discuss another Wednesday night. Maras ha'ayin doesn't really just mean how it's going to look. It means that it will appear that I'm doing something forbidden, even though I'm not.
Forbidden right.
That's what they're saying here. Right. Like you'd have a question, for example, are you allowed to go in to the McDonald's at a rest stop to buy a Coca-Cola or to go to the bathroom? Someone's going to see me have a yarmulke, a nice Baruch Hashem, nice beard. Oh, look, the rabbi's going into McDonald's. Maybe he's doing something he's not allowed, buying non-kosher. I mean, God forbid. So he says, "Aval basar behema." But if you're cooking beef with the almond milk, and if that was real milk, that would be an isur d'oraisa. If it was, in such a case, then you know what you should do? You put the almonds on the table next to the meat and milk concoction That way, there's almonds on the table.
Or the almond milk thing.
In modern day, that's people do.
Yeah.
Today, I don't think you need to do any of this though. Question is okay. There it talks about where it says here references Siman Samach Vov earlier about blood. There it's talking about fish blood. Fish blood you're allowed to drink, but it says that if you're drinking fish blood, you put the scales in the fish, so people know that you're not drinking blood from a human or a cow or whatever. That was gross, right?
Yes.
Sorry. Okay,
The
this
scale
was
spot.
the scale spot. Okay, this was a little bit of an investigation into basar v'cholav. Questions, comments? Okay. We didn't do all the sources I put on the page, but okay. So now we know a little bit more about the source and the reason and why the Chachamim didn't permit it. Okay. I have it looks like 4 copies of the Sefer right here in the middle that people can use. Here, I have some of the English. We're moving on to this now. I have some English, yeah. Okay. Derech mitzvah. Back to the mitzvah of Ahavas Yisrael. You want to see if I have it in here? Let's see. Okay, that's too far.
Yeah, it's around
It's around here somewhere, I think.
Hein b'milad the alma.
Yeah.
Somewhere over there, right? Like in the middle, we kind of stopped in the middle of a sentence last time, I think.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, try.
One try.
Do.
There is no try.
Yeah, Mr. Philosopher. That's base. Okay, apple P. Then it's gonna be.
Zel Madasoni Loch, maybe?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah.
Right there. Okay. So we were in the second explanation in the Maimer, the second explanation for the mitzvah for Ahavas Yisrael, for loving every Jew. And this was coming to address the question that we asked at the beginning of the Maimer regarding Hillel Hazokin, Hillel the elder. When he was approached by the potential convert, the future convert, who came over and said, teach me the whole Torah while I'm standing on one foot. Shammai booted him out. I don't got time for this. And Hillel said to him, love your neighbor as yourself. No, he didn't say that.
Got it.
He didn't say that's the whole Torah. He didn't say that. What Rabbi Akiva actually said was Mad the Sani Loch, what's hateful to you, don't do to someone else. So we asked the question, why did Hillel express it in the negative? It's not a mitzvah's loy saseh. It's a mitzvah, well, there is also, but loy sisna is a chichel bilvavecha, but it's the Torah states it in the positive. Ve'ohavta l'recha kamoicha. Love your neighbor as yourself. So why didn't Hillel just say that?
Right.
Oh, you want the whole Torah? Love your neighbor as yourself. That's the whole thing. Everything else is commentary. Now go learn. But he didn't say that. He took the same core idea of hateful and he expressed it in the negative. This, whatever is hateful to you, don't do to someone else. The rest is commentary. Now go learn it. That's what he said. So we asked the question, why did he express in the negative? So we answered that he was actually not just coming to say that the mitzvah of Ahavas Yisrael is the core of the Torah. He was also giving a pirush, an explanation on what is the mitzvah of Ahavas Yisrael, like a practical application. How do you actually do it? Like, okay, I have to love every Jew. Baruch, I love you. Did I do the mitzvah? I love you. Is that the mitzvah? Yeah, okay. No, Hillel said that it's something more than that. What's hateful to you, don't do to someone else. He's explaining the mitzvah. What's hateful to you? What's hateful to me, well, I guess one of the things, and in the context of our Maimer, is when someone points out what's wrong with me. I don't like you to tell me what's wrong with me, even if you're right. I don't appreciate that. Now, usually, most of us know at least where some of our problems lie. Most of us know at least some of the issues that we could probably do to improve. Yeah. Unless we're like mamish in the dark, right? Most of us are aware of our flaws and areas that we need to improve. But I go like this. When I say Tachnu, Oshamnu, Bogadnu, Gozal, I go like this. Oshamnu, Bogadnu, Gozal, it's not so bad. I stole, but it was okay when I stole. It wasn't such a big deal. We do like that. Not because we don't know the faults, but because we're willing to overlook our own flaws. Why? Because we love ourselves. Hopefully, I hope we love ourselves. A healthy person, a person with a healthy self-esteem and a healthy view of themselves, loves themselves, they care about themselves, and due to their own self-love, not always, we discussed it a little bit last week, but they're often willing to overlook our own problems. And I wouldn't appreciate it if someone comes along, hey, you know what your problem is? I don't appreciate when someone points out my own flaws.
That's a topic of discussion.
Because you said last week,
Depends on.
no, I said you're a tzaddik or something.
No,
I
I'm
don't
not
know.
fan about that. I'm just saying that.
Right?
It depends. It all depends on who it is, the
It
circumstances.
depends on who it is and the circumstances
and
and the context.
the way in which it's conveyed. Okay.
Correct.
If you say, "Hey, man, you're doing," no, you're a jerk. If you're not such a nice guy, you're a jerk. Same thing. If you're not such a nice guy, you're a jerk. Different reaction, right?
Yes, absolutely. You're 100% correct. We did discuss it last week, and you're 100% correct. Of course it matters. Of course it matters who points it out and in the way, the manner in which they point it out, for sure. So what's hateful to me, I shouldn't do to someone else. I don't need to go around pointing out other people's flaws. And by the way, even if we like it when people point out our flaws, maybe, If we're one of those types of people, I'm not thinking about anybody in particular here, but if we're one of those types of people who likes it when people point out our flaws, we should know that a lot of people actually don't appreciate that. And we probably shouldn't go around, oh, Baruch, there's something I wanted to tell you. Boom. See, something I wanted to tell you. I probably shouldn't do that.
That's what for bringing or something.
Even that needs to be.
No flachaims.
And like there's the story of the guy who went to the Schwitz.
Oh yeah.
You go to the Schwitz. Where can you get a good Schwitz here? I don't know. In Yerushalayim, they have by Zupnik. You know where Zupnik is over there? They have a real Schwitz over there. And in the Schwitz, probably in Europe in the olden days, right? They had the Schwitz, and there was a guy who would stand there with a eucalyptus branch. And he would, everybody was in their birthday suit. He'll give you a smack on the back with his eucalyptus branch, we let off a pleasant scent, I guess, of the heat in the room and all the heat. Would smack you on the back, and it felt good, like get the blood flowing and just felt good. And so there was a guy, it was his job, he would smack people on the back with the eucalyptus branch. I think it had a nice smell to it, and he would hit you on the back, and something about, I don't know, it felt good. There was a certain pressure and the smell and the whole experience. It was, people liked it. So they would go, the guy would hit him, they'd go, hit me again. Smack. No, give him one more. Give me another good hit. Smack. It's great. It's fantastic. Now imagine you're walking down Main Street. Guy comes over to you. Smack. But like, what are you doing? What the? You liked it in the Schwitz yesterday when I gave you a smack with a branch. Yeah, but you just come up to me on the street in the middle and you smack me? What is going on over here? What are you, crazy? Right. What's the difference? Obviously, the difference, I think, is the mashal from the Friedrich Rebbe, no?
Yeah, Friedrich Rebbe, yeah.
Obviously, the difference the Friedrich Rebbe explained is that when you're in the Schwitz.
To Gordon, I think Gordon in Newark. Because
oh, yeah?
Yeah, Gordon and his father.
Schollenberg Gordon. It was Yochanan Gordon.
Yeah.
I remember when I was in Morristown, Schollenberg Gordon came from Brangden, Morristown. I remember that.
Yeah, so he asked the Friedrich Rebbe, like, how do I tell what I do in community? Because I tell my community the things that they should be doing, they're gonna all run away.
Right.
So what do I how do I handle that? If I don't tell them, then what am I doing there?
Right.
So
right. So the answer obviously is that of course when you're in the Schwitz, you're warmed up a little bit first. You're warmed up, the blood is flowing, it's warm, there's a feeling of closeness and then someone gives you a smack, okay. I can handle it, I can take it. But if you're gonna come up in the cold street on Main Street, in the middle of out of nowhere, boom. Whoa, what's going on over here? So same thing. If we're gonna context, which is really what Reb Nachum is saying also, is the context. But even still, I do want to suggest, even still, it's probably not a mitzvah to go tell people their flaws. Even though it is a mitzvah. But it says is a double language. Right. Some say that the meaning is because first it says rebuke, thou shalt rebuke. Instead of just rebuke. Some say it's because first rebuke yourself. Then, if you do that properly, maybe you could share that rebuke with someone else. But either way, I know it's a mitzvah technically, but everything has to be viewed in context. It's not so simple, and we should be cautious. That's what I want to suggest. We should be cautious.
It's a mitzvah to rebuke the rebukers.
It's like you shush the shushers.
Right.
Who's causing more noise in shul? The shushers or the guys who are talking? Or the shushers of the shushers? It's a big balagan. Okay. I think we're off topic now. We're officially off topic. What are we talking about even?
So why use
that which is hateful to you? That is when people say, I see, I know, I uncovered your little secret. We don't like that. We don't appreciate that. So we shouldn't do that to other people either. Let's see. What is it? That with this that is hateful to you is when someone else points out your flaws. Don't do that to someone else. Don't see his problems. Don't look at his flaws, his faults. Whether we're talking about flaws that he has from man to man or between man and God. Don't point it out and make it into a thing. Don't highlight it with your highlighter and then double underline it. Don't do that. Your love for him, for the other person, should be so powerful, should be so strong that it covers over his flaws. So it's as if you don't see it. And don't allow it to come into and be expressed in midos, in your character, in your emotions. That when a person is very attracted to another person, close friendship, for example, when you're just like two mamish, two peas in a pod, mamish, two chaverim, close friends. If the guy says something rude to you, that's fine. If he stands you up, you were supposed to meet him for coffee, and he stands you up, that's okay. I'm sure something happened to him. I'm sure. I better check, make sure he's okay. Anything he could do is like, it's not teifus mokim. It doesn't bother you. It's okay. And will be totally, basically washed away by the love that you have for him. You'll be more forgiving when you're more loving. That's why Hillel says that's the whole Torah. The way to look at another Jew, to be forgiving, to have love for him, and to not look over, but to overlook the person's flaws. That's why it's called the entire Torah. Because when we're all coming together, and we join in total unity, as if we are one being, one unit. This creates a tremendous, wondrous spiritual reverberations. That is the foundation of the whole Torah. That is the unification of Hashem and the Shekhinah, the divine presence. What does it mean? The Shekhinah, in the language of Kabbalah, is a reference to the source of all neshamos, of all souls, and that unites with Hashem. So the Jewish people are then connecting, uniting with Hashem. When we unite with each other, when we allow, not only allow, but we encourage our ahava to extend and to smooth over the rough edges that someone else may have. This causes us, in turn, to be we unite together, and we in turn unite with Hashem. So how does that work? Kihine, Shufred Yaakov and Shufred Adam. The beauty of Yaakov is like the beauty of Adam, meaning that just like Adam Harishon includes all neshamos, like it says at the beginning of Tanya from Kabbalah, just like Adam Harishon includes within him all the souls, so too Yaakov as well. Yaakov included all the neshamos within him. Just like Adam Harishon, when the Jewish people, when we're going to come together, when we're uniting together, and we're joined, become as one. Now you have echad be'echad, the oneness of the Jewish people and the oneness of Hashem come together. Hashem unites with the Jewish people, and then the Adam de La'ela, the supernal man, doesn't see any flaws within himself, within this supernal God. There's no flaws there. And then when he doesn't see a flaw there, because he sees the Jewish people are in turn united, and the Jewish people, as we unite with Hashem, meaning when the Jewish people unite together, that causes and activates a unification together with Hashem as well. And then what happens? V'oz, then, who over al kol pesha shel Yisrael. Hashem is very, very forgiving. He overlooks any flaws that we may have. Like as if someone sunk in the sea. Can't even see it. The water covers over everything in the sea. So too Hashem's love for us, for the Jewish people, and our love, which is activated by our love for each other, means that Hashem overlooks our flaws. Like the pasuk says, he didn't see Avoin sin by Yaakov, meaning by the Jewish people. He didn't see any sins. And he didn't see any toil by the Jewish people, meaning he didn't see any Averas. There were no sins, no flaws, no problems. I don't see anything. Look at another Jew, and Hashem will then look at us as if we have no flaws. Just like the person doesn't see your own flaws, we don't see our own flaws, and he's going to say what that means, so to Hashem won't see our flaws. Hashem will overlook it and be more forgiving, easygoing. We don't have to be so uptight about every little detail, all the flaws. Now, what does it mean that Hashem doesn't see the flaws? Of course he does. Hashem sees everything.
Overlooks.
Oh, that's what the Tzemach Tzedek is going to say now. Ve'ein pirush lo hibit v'lo yira shene'elo mimenu chas v'sholom. When we say he doesn't see the flaws, it obviously doesn't mean that he doesn't see them. Why? Ki hakol gol v'yadua afilu sicha kala v'chu. Hashem knows everything. Even a sicha kala bein ish le'ishta, even like a very innocent passing conversation between husband and wife. Hashem knows everything. Hashem sees everything. He doesn't even have to look for it. It's golui v'yadua lefanav. It's just written right in front of his face. It's on the billboard in front of him, so to speak. So when we say that Hashem doesn't see our flaws, it doesn't mean that he doesn't know. He knows better than we know. He knows everything. He sees it, but he's not misboinin on it. How would you translate misboinin here? He doesn't focus on it, maybe. I don't know if that's how they...
What do they say there?
We have 2 or 3 English translations here.
They say meditate.
Meditate.
No notice.
Notice, that's maybe a little bit better. Doesn't notice it. Doesn't notice. I mean, he's not fooling himself. He knows exactly what's going on.
He's acting like meter kinetic meter. If this is how we act, this is
Yes.
how I, Hashem, will act towards you.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. What does it mean that he's not meditating on it, or he's not what did you say? Noticing it? What it means, he says here, is that of course he knows intellectually, so to speak. Hashem knows, because Hashem knows everything. What it means is that he doesn't let it filter from knowledge to emotions. So it doesn't bother him, so to speak. It's only in the emotions that we get tied up, we get wrapped up in something. Like, you never heard of someone who did something wrong before? You never heard of such a thing before? We all know people that did wrong things. No. Why can't we just so get over it, get past it? Why can't we do that?
Why do emotions have to? What do emotions have to do with punishment? I don't want to say. I mean,
let's not talk about punishment. If I allow my knowledge of someone's activity to permeate and penetrate my emotions, my heart, I think what he's saying here, that's how you end up holding on to it and not being willing to let go of it. When you get wrapped up emotionally in something, now you start to get angry and you start to build it up. Then you think about it more, and that makes you even more angry.
Right, but here we're talking about Hashem, that
right.
person. So
it's kivyochel, meaning it doesn't allow it to get into midos. Midos is the end of his spirals of hard word to translate, of excitement. That's a very bad translation. What does it say here? Spirals. They spirals b'midos hakvul. It doesn't get activated.
What does it say? Affecting the emotion.
Affecting, okay. Activating the emotions is an affect the emotions. Specifically, gvura, which is the measurement of din, which could lead to punishment, God forbid, or things like that. The love just covers over it. So what's the Tzemach Tzedek saying? Obviously, Hashem knows everything, and Hashem sees everything. Nothing's hidden from him. So we're not, and same thing with us, by the way. I don't see everything. But the mimer, that Tzemach Tzedek is not telling me to live in denial. It's not telling me that. It's just to look at it in a different way. Like they say in many stories about the great Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev, the great lover of the Jewish people. It's countless stories about his tremendous Ahavas Yisrael. One of the famous ones, he was out wherever he was going, whatever, and he saw the guy on the side of the road with his wagon, horse-drawn carriage, which I guess had broken down or something on the side of the road. The guy's wearing his towel, the carriage driver wearing his towels and film, and he's greasing the axle of the wheel, of the carriage. Some people, I guess, thought, because this guy has no respect for tefillah, no covet for the tefillin, kedusha, doesn't respect it. He's greasing, his hands are dirty and greasing the wheel. Daven like a mensch, and then go fix your car. What's wrong with you? But Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev didn't look at it like that. He had the exact opposite, right? He said, look at this Yid. Even when he greases the wheels of his carriage, he's davening to Hashem. Mamash, turn the whole thing around. It's not that while he's davening, look what he's doing, he's greasing his wheels. No, while he's greasing his wheels, even then he finds a way to daven to Hashem. Gewaldig. That was the Berditchev. So he didn't not see what was going on. He saw it. But he didn't filter down to bother him, to harbor negativity. Because listen, the guy's greasing his, you can imagine someone fixing their car on Main Street wearing towels and tefillin. What are you doing? What are you doing? Doesn't make sense. It's not coveting. Or maybe it is coveting. Maybe there's another way to look at it. To find the positivity. Just like I would find my own excuses. If I needed to do something, what do you know? What do you know what the guy's dealing with? When something else is going on, who knows? Who knows what's going on?
But is he saying that this is a way to Ahavas Yisrael? Because like when you love somebody naturally, obviously all Jews, we love naturally deep inside, but we don't have access, we don't, it's covered up, right? But someone that it's revealed, let's say like, it's like your wife or whatever, like, your child is a great example because our children, they could do no wrong. We always love them. We always see things, so that naturally you end up doing this. The teacher says this and that about your kid, and you're like, what are you talking about? I mean, that's what nowadays it is, at least. But as he said, but I don't feel that way towards just another guy, right? Some guy. So is he saying that by doing this, that's how you're gonna have the Ava, reveal it, or just do it? Like, in other words,
It's funny because it's funny you mentioned about marriage. I wanted to talk about that later in the memory. There was something that I felt related to marriage. We didn't get there today, but I was also thinking basar v'chalav. What's basar v'chalav? Is according to Kabbalah, the two opposites. Meat is one inyan in Kabbalah in spirituality. Milk is another inyan. It says meat is gvura, milk is chesed. Right? Milk comes from the mother milks the child. It always gives, no matter how much milk the mother gives, she always has more, always replenishes. That's chesed, giving. Whereas meat is signifies gvura. They're opposites, but the opposites come together, like in marriage. But a person is often attracted to the person who's different than them. The person who's the opposite of them. And then what happens a year later? The very things that a person was attracted to is what bothers him. Okay. Separate topic. We're not having a marriage schmooze tonight. Maybe another time we will. But how many people, they're going to therapy, and God bless them, if you need it, go get it, right? And you're complaining about my wife does this, that. That's what you were attracted to her in the first place. It's often the same meter, the same energy, because the opposites come together. So it's that energy, that strength, those differences often that are what bring us apart and what drive us apart. That's the irony behind
But
it.
in the beginning, you were infatuated with love and emotions. That covered up.
Oh,
That covered
thank you.
everything up.
Thank you.
and that's how he's saying how to be.
And sometimes, like especially in marriage, in shaduchim before marriage, that's very bad. It's very bad. The person gets
Infatuated.
they can't think like a normal human being anymore. They're not thinking straight. That's why it's so critical that when a person is dating, to have someone with whom you can consult, someone to talk to. Not necessarily a friend, a mentor, a friend, or whatever. Certainly if it's a young person, 19 or 20-year-old who's dating, they can talk to their friends, but that should not be the person they consult with. The person doesn't know anything. Usually it should be someone at least 5 or 10 years older. Like in business, any successful business person gets a mentor. Anybody successful in business has a mentor that they ask for advice and that guides them. Same thing, obviously, with dating and for marriage, for sure. But yeah, so if you overlook all the flaws when you're dating, you're getting yourself into hot water. You got to identify the flaws. That's not going against Ahavas Yisrael. That is Ahavas Yisrael for the other person. You don't want that other person to get into a marriage that's not good for them. Also, Ahavas Yisrael for yourself is also permissible, right? It's also okay to love myself. Once you're married, then that's the Ava. Like you said, the beginning of the relationship is there. There's an infatuation, an excitement, a passion. It's all new. It's all chiddush. So excited, givaldik. Good. So, she did this. She did that. That's fine. It's only later. What does it bother you for? It didn't bother you before. Why does it bother you now? So somehow we're able to let our love cover over problems. We're able to do it, and the proof is that we do it. That's the proof. So maybe that's what the Tzemach Tzedek is saying in the Bible. We have the ability to overlook flaws and faults, not to live in la la land, in a dream world. Oh no, this person is perfect. No, we don't have to live in a dream world. We call a spade a spade. And if I know someone who is a sketchy character and doesn't pay back loans, and when he asks me for a loan, I don't have to give him a loan necessarily. That's nothing to do with Ahavas Yisrael. That's something else. I'll still love him. I'm not going to judge him for his flaws. Okay. All right. Well, I thought we were going to get to the end of the mimer today, but we didn't. But God willing, Mr. next week we'll continue.
I don't really.
So where do we end?
I'm not totally sure.
But I have on the bottom of page Chavtes.
Which word?
You got it?
I'm good. I lost the place.
So thank you everyone for coming.
Okay.
Next week, I don't know what the halacha topic will be yet.
It's important.
We didn't even get through this week yet. First we have to get through this week for Shabbat. Then we'll figure out what's going to be next week halacha. Either we'll continue with maybe Mars Ayin next week, or I don't know, some other halacha topic. We'll figure it out then when we get closer to that. And Chassidus, God willing, will continue the mimer. And then there was a request to do about the Suda Shlishis, a deep dive into lots of Suda Shlishis.
But Mars Ayin sounds good though.
Mars Ayin,
I like that.
maybe we'll do that too. Can you
It
wear?
looks good.
It's all the question that is, right? Can you wear shoes? You know what I'm going to talk about on Yom Kippur that look 100% like leather but are not. Can you wear those? Maybe it's Mars Ayin. Someone's going to say, "Oh, he's wearing leather shoes." That's not. Can you go into the McDonald's to get a Coke? Whether you can get a Coke from their fountain machine is a separate question. I don't know. Or use the bathroom or whatever. All sorts of different questions of Mars Ayin. If you're serving now, right? This was used to be a bigger question now than it is now. I think Shabbos Friday night dinner, you put out ice cream, pie of ice cream. Obviously, do you have to put the container on the table, like the almonds? Do you have to put the almonds on the table? To put the container of the pie of ice cream on the table. It's less and less of a question nowadays because now everybody knows. Of course, pie of ice cream. And
I always tell people it's Chalav Yisrael. Don't worry about it.
you're gonna scare people. You know the Maisa ones that they served
point?
on Pesach by the Rebbe Seder. They served the Rebbe chicken soup, and there was something in it. It was a chicken bowl, ground chicken that they made, and it was like, "What is this?" And someone, I think a bacher there, jokingly said it's knedel, matzah ball, which Chabad stays away from on Pesach like the plague. And the Rebbe gave it back. They're like, no, it's not. It's chicken roll. Didn't touch it. Okay, that's the Rebbe, but we have to be careful what we joke about, I guess. In any event.
There's a cool question. How does what we're learning now? How's it connect with our this week's parsha? There's a pasuk about you see the your enemy's donkey, the guy you hate, the Sonech,
The famous Torah of the Baal Shem Tov.
right? So the Torah allows for some sort of sina. I mean, it shouldn't have that.
Isn't the heading of the mimer is Isser Sinas Yisrael. It says in black and white. The prohibition, and he quotes a pasuk even. Shaloi sisne lechaveiroi. Shenemar lo sisne zachicha b'lavavecha. No, you're not allowed to hate another Jew.
But the Torah shouldn't use that kind of language. When you see the donkey of your, I forgot what the pasuk is.
Yisrech Hamor Seinacha Levi Yitzchak of
Maybe we should use a different word. Maybe you see the donkey of someone who you don't, not so friendly with. I don't know.
I don't know.
This week's question.